May 10th, 1917, Volume 12. How Jesus Gives Motion and Life to All Creatures with His Breath. Continuing in my poor state, I was trying to fuse myself in my sweet Jesus according to my usual way, but as much as I tried, it was in vain. Jesus himself distracted me, and sighing, strongly told me, "My daughter, the creature is nothing other than my breath. As I breathe, I give life to everything. All life is in the breathing. Without breathing, the heart no longer beats, the blood no longer circulates, the hands remain inactive, the mind feels the intelligence die, and so with all the rest. Therefore the whole of human life is in receiving and in giving this breath. But while I give life and motion to all creatures with my breath, wanting to sanctify them, love them, embellish them, enrich them, and so forth, with my holy breath, as they return to me the breath which they receive, they send me offenses, rebellions, ingratitudes, blasphemies, denials, and all the rest. I send the breath as pure, and they send it back impure. I send it in blessing, and it comes back to me cursing. I send it all love, and it returns offending me up into my inmost heart. But love makes me continue to send my breath, in order to maintain these machines of human lives. Otherwise they would no longer function and would end up wrecked. Ah, my daughter, did you hear how human life is maintained? By my breath. And when I find a soul who loves me, how sweet her breath is, how she amuses me, I feel cheered. An echo of harmonies is formed between me and her, so she remains distinct from the other creatures, and she will be distinct also in heaven. My daughter, I could not contain my love, and I wanted to pour myself out with you. So today I could not fuse myself in Jesus, because he himself kept me busy in his breath. How many things I understood, but I am unable to say them well, so I stop here. May 10th, 1919, Volume 12. The divine life lasts in the soul as long as the will of God is in her. I was very afflicted and almost concerned about my poor state, and Jesus, wanting to distract me from thinking about myself, told me, "My daughter, what are you doing? The thought of yourself makes you go out of my will. Don't you know that the divine life lasts in you as long as my will is in you, and that as soon as my will ceases, the divine life also ceases, and you take back your human life? Fine exchange you make. The same happens with obedience. As long as there is obedience, the life of the one who commanded lasts in the one who obeys. As soon as obedience ceases, one takes back his own life." Then, as though sighing, he added, "Ah, you do not know the ruin the world will become. All that has happened until now can be called a game compared to the chastisements which are coming. I do not show all of them to you so as not to oppress you too much. And I, in seeing the obstinacy of man, remain as though hiding within you. And you, pray together with me, and do not want to think about yourself." May 10th, 1925, Volume 17. Different ways to fuse oneself in the divine will. Feast of the Divinity and reason for it. I write only out of obedience, and I am going to make a mix of past and present things. Many times in my writings I say, I was fusing myself in the holy divine volition, and I don't explain further. Now, forced by obedience, I will say what happens to me in this fusion in the divine volition. As I fuse myself in it, an immense void, all of light, comes before my mind, in which one can find neither the extent of its height nor of its depth, nor the boundaries on the right or on the left, nor those on the front or on the back. In the midst of this immensity, in a highest point, I seem to see the divinity, or the three divine persons, waiting for me, but this always mentally. And I don't know how, a little child comes out from me, although it is still I. Maybe it's my little soul. It is moving to see this little child putting herself on the path within this immense empty space, all alone, shy, walking on tiptoe, with her eyes always fixed to the place where she sees the three divine persons, because she fears that if she lowers her gaze in that immense void, she wouldn't know at what point she would end up. All her strength is in that gaze fixed on high. In fact, in receiving in return the gaze of the supreme height, she draws strength along the way. Now, as the little one arrives before them, she plunges herself with her face into that empty space to adore the divine majesty. But a hand from the divine persons raises the little child, and they say to her, "Our daughter, the little daughter of our will, come into our arms." In hearing this, she becomes festive and makes the three divine persons festive, and delighting in her, they await the performance of the office which they entrusted to her. And with grace, typical of a child, she says, "I come to adore you, to bless you, and to thank you for all. I come to bind to your throne all human wills of all generations, from the first to the last man, so that all may recognize your supreme will. May all adore it, love it, and give it life within their souls." Then she added, "O Supreme Majesty, in this immense void there are all these creatures, and I want to take them all and place them in your holy will, so that all may return to the origin from which they came, your will. This is why I came into your paternal arms, to bring you all your children and brothers of mine, and bind them all with your will. And in the name of all and for every one, I want to repair you and give you homage and glory, as if everyone had done your most holy will. But please, I beg you, let there be no more separation between divine and human will. It is a little child who is asking you this, and I know that you can deny nothing to the little ones. But who can say all that I did and said? I would be too long. Besides, I lack the words to express what I say before the Supreme Majesty. It seems to me that here in the low world we don't use the same language as in that immense empty space. At other times, while I fuse myself in the divine will, and that immense void comes before my mind, I wander around all created things, and I impress in them one "I love you" for the Supreme Majesty, as though wanting to fill the whole atmosphere with many "I love yous," in order to return the supreme love for his great love toward creatures. Even more, I go through each thought of creature, and I impress my "I love you," through each gaze, and I leave my "I love you," through each heartbeat, work, and step, and I cover them with my "I love you," addressing them to my God. I go down into the sea, into the depths of the ocean, and I want to fill every darting of the fish, every drop of water with my I love you. Then, after she has worked everywhere, as though sowing her I love you, the little child presents herself before the divine majesty, and wanting to make for him a pleasing surprise, she says, "My Creator and my Father, my Jesus and my eternal love, look at everything and hear how all creatures say that they love you. Everywhere there is an I love you for you. Heaven and earth are filled with them. And so now will you not concede to your tiny little one that your will descend into the midst of creatures, make itself known, make peace with the human will, and take its just dominion, its place of honor, so that no creature may ever do her will again, but always yours?" At other times, while I fuse myself in the divine volition, I want to feel sorrow for all the offenses given to my God, and I start my round again in that immense void, in order to find all the sorrow that Jesus felt for all sins. I make it my own, and I wander everywhere, in the most hidden and secret places, in public places, over all the acts of evil men, to feel sorrow for all the offenses, and for each sin, gathering within me all the sorrow for all sins, I feel like crying out in every motion of all creation, "Forgiveness, forgiveness." There is not one offense to God, even the slightest one, for which I do not feel sorrow and ask forgiveness. And so that all may hear my plea of forgiveness for all sins, I impress it in the rumbling of the thunder, so that sorrow for having offended my God may thunder in all hearts. Forgiveness in the striking of lightning, sorrowful repentance in the whistling of the wind, crying out to all, repentance and plea of forgiveness. And in the tinkling of the bells, sorrow and forgiveness. In sum, the same in everything. Then I bring the sorrow of all to my God, and I implore forgiveness for all, saying, "Great God, let your will descend upon earth, so that sin may no longer take place. The human will alone is what produces so many offenses that it seems to be flooding the earth with sins. Your will be the destroyer of all evils. Therefore I beg you, make the little daughter of your will content, who wants nothing else but that your will be known and loved, and that it reign in all hearts." I remember that one day I was fusing myself in the holy divine volition, and I looked at the sky as it was pouring rain. I felt great pleasure in seeing water pouring down upon the earth, and my sweet Jesus moving in my interior with unspeakable love and tenderness told me, "My daughter, in those drops of water that you see pouring down from heaven, there is my will. It flows rapidly together with the water. It runs to quench the thirst of the creatures, to descend into the human bowels and into their veins, to refresh them, and to become life of the creatures, bringing them my kiss and my love. It descends to water the earth, to fecundate it, and to prepare the food for my creatures. It descends for many other needs of theirs. My will wants to have life in all created things, in order to give celestial and natural life to all creatures. However, though it descends festive and full of love for all, it does not receive a fair return on the part of creatures, and it remains on an empty stomach. My daughter, your will too, fused in mine, flows in that water that pours down from heaven. Run together with me wherever it goes, never leave it alone, and give it the return of your love and gratitude for all." But as he was saying this, my eyes remained enchanted, I could not move them from that pouring water. My will was flowing together with it, and in that water I could see the hands of my Jesus multiplying into many, in order to bring water to all with his own hands. Who can say what I felt within me? Jesus alone can say it, he who is the author of it. And who can say about the many ways of fusing myself in his most holy volition? For now I have said enough. If Jesus wants me to continue another time, he will give me the words and the grace to say more, and I will start again. In addition, I was saying to my Jesus, "Tell me, my love, what is this void that comes before my mind when I fuse myself in your most holy will? Who is this little child coming out from me? And why does she feel an irresistible force to come to your throne and place her little axe into the divine womb, almost to make him a feast?" My sweet Jesus, all goodness, told me, "My daughter, the empty space is my unrequited will, placed at your disposal, which should be filled with so many acts, as many as the creatures would have done had they all fulfilled our will. This immense void that you see, which represents our will, came out from our divinity for the benefit of all in creation, to delight every one and everything. Therefore, as a consequence, all creatures should have filled this void with the return of their acts, and by giving their wills to their Creator. But since they did not do so, they saddened us with the most grave offense that can possibly be imagined. This is why we called you with a special mission, so that this void may be returned and filled with all that the others should have given us. And this is the reason for which we disposed you with a long chain of graces, and then asked you if you wanted to live in our will. And you answered with a yes, firm and irretractable, binding your will to our throne. And you did not want to recognize it any more, because human will and divine will do not reconcile and cannot live together. That yes, your will exists and is tightly bound to our throne. And this is why your soul, like a little child reborn in our divine volition, is drawn before the Supreme Majesty, because as you rise up toward us, your will, which is already ours, precedes you, and you feel our will attracting you like a powerful magnet. And instead of looking at your will, you interest yourself only in bringing onto our lap everything you did in our will, as the greatest homage which befits us, and as the return most pleasing to us. Your indifference to your will, as you've already lost sight of it, and our will alone living in you, make us festive. Your little acts done in our will bring us the joys of the whole creation. It seems that everything smiles at us, and that all created things make feast. And in seeing that you descend from our throne with not even the slightest attention to your will, which is as though lost within ours, and in seeing you going back to earth taking our will, is an infinite joy for us. This is why I always say to you, be attentive upon our will, because there is much to do in it. The more you do, the greater the feast you make us, and our volition will pour out in torrents, inside and outside of you. May 10th, 1926, Volume 19. Just as the sun is life of all nature, the divine will is life of the soul. Effects of the rising of the sun of the divine will in the soul. The innumerable bilocations and the continuous course of the sun of the divine will in the acts of the creature. My poor mind was swimming in the immense sea of the eternal volition, and my sweet Jesus transported me outside of myself, in the act in which the sun was rising. What enchantment to see the earth, the plants, the flowers, the sea, undergoing such a transformation. All of them freed themselves of a nightmare that oppressed them. All rose to the new life which the light gave to them, and acquired their beauty and development, which the light and the heat gave them, in order to make them grow. The light seemed to take them by the hand in investing them to give fecundity to plants and color to flowers, to dispel the shadows of darkness from the sea, and give it its silvery shades with its light. But who can say all the effects that the solar light produced by investing all the earth, covering everything with its garment of light? I would be too long if I wanted to describe everything. Now, while I was seeing this, my beloved Jesus told me, "My daughter, how beautiful is the rising of the sun, how it changes all of nature, and by transforming it into its very light, it gives to each thing the effects needed to make them produce the good they contain. But in order to do this, the light must invest them, touch them, mold them, penetrate so deep into them as to give them sips of light, in order to infuse the life of the good which they must produce. So if the plants, the flowers, the sea, did not let themselves be invested by the light would be as though dead for them, and they would remain in the nightmare of darkness, which would serve as the tomb to bury them. The virtue of darkness is to give death. The virtue of light is to give life. So if it wasn't for the light of the sun, on which all created things are dependent, and from which all of them receive life, nothing good would be on earth. On the contrary, it would be frightening and horrible to the sight. Therefore, the life of the earth is bound to the light. Now, my daughter, the sun is the symbol of my will, and you have seen how beautiful and enchanting is its rising over the earth, how many effects it produces, how many different colors, how many beauties, how many transformations its light can produce, and how this sun has been placed there by its Creator in order to give life, growth, and beauty to all nature. So if this is what the sun does in order to fulfill its office given to it by God, much more does the sun of my will, which was given to man to infuse in him the life of his Creator. Oh, how much more enchanting and beautiful is the rising of the sun of my will over the creature. By pounding on her, its light transforms her and gives her the different colors of the beauty of her Creator. By investing her and molding her, it penetrates into her and gives her sips of divine life, that she may grow and produce the effects of the goods which the life of her Creator contains. Now, what would happen to the earth without the sun? Much more ugly and frightening would the soul be without my will. How she decays from her origin, how the nightmare of passions and vices, more than darkness, makes her die, and prepares the tomb in which to bury her. But you have seen that the light of the sun can do good in so far as the plants, the flowers, and the other things let themselves be touched and invested by the light, remaining with their mouths open in order to receive the sips of life which the sun gives to them. So it is with my will. It can do so much good. It can infuse so much beauty and divine life, for as much as the soul lets herself be touched, invested, molded by the hands of light of my will. If the soul gives herself prey to this light, abandoning herself completely in it, my supreme will perform the greatest prodigy of creation, the divine life in the creature. Oh, if the sun could form with the reflection of its light as many other suns on each plant, in the seas, on the mountains, in the valleys, what more beautiful enchantment, what beauty more radiant, How many more prodigies would there not be in the order of nature? Yet what the sun does not do, my will does in the soul who lives in it, and who remains with her mouth open, like a little flower, in order to receive the sips of light which my will gives her, to form the life of the divine Son within her. Therefore be attentive. Take in every instant these sips of light of my will, that it may accomplish in you the greatest of prodigies, that my will may have its divine life in the creature. After this I was saying to my highest and only good, my love, I unite my intelligence to yours, so that my thoughts may have life in yours, and diffusing in your will they may flow over each thought of creature. And rising together before our celestial Father, we will bring him the homages, the subjection, the love of each thought of creature, and we will impetrate that all created intelligences may be reordered and harmonized with their Creator. And the same with the gazes of Jesus, with his words, with his works, with his steps, and even with his heartbeat. I felt all transformed in Jesus, in such a way that I found myself as though in act, in everything that my Jesus had done and was doing to restore the glory of the Father, and in the good he had impetrated for creatures. His work was one with mine, one the love, one the will. And my sweet Jesus added, my daughter, how beautiful is the prayer, the love, the work of the creature in my will. Her acts are filled with the whole of the divine fullness. Their fullness is such that they embrace everything and everyone, even God himself. See, for all eternity your thoughts will be seen in mine, your eyes, your words in mine, your works and steps in mine, your heartbeat palpitating in mine, because one is the will that gives us life, one the love that moves us, that pushes us, and that binds us in an inseparable way. This is why the sun of my will surpasses in an infinite and more surprising way the sun present in the atmosphere. See the great difference. The sun created by God while pounding on the earth invests it. It produces admirable and innumerable effects, but it does not depart from its source. It descends down below, it rises up high, it touches the stars, but the fullness of light remains always within its sphere. Otherwise it would not be able to invest everything with its light, always equally. But in spite of all this, the solar light does not penetrate into the heavens to invest the throne of God, to penetrate into God himself and make its light one with the inaccessible light of the Supreme Being, nor can it invest the angels, the saints, or the celestial Mama. On the other hand, when the sun of my will reigns in the soul with all its fullness, its light penetrates everywhere, into the hearts and into the minds of the creatures who live down on earth. But what surprises is that it rises up high. It invests the whole creation and brings the kiss of the light of the supreme will to the sun, to the stars, to the heavens. The divine will which reigns in the creation and the sun of the divine will which reigns in the soul meet. They kiss each other, love each other, and make each other happy. And while remaining in the creation, because the sun of my will leaves nothing behind, but brings everything with itself, it penetrates into the heavens. It invests everyone, the angels, the saints, the sovereign queen. It gives its kiss to all. It gives new joys, new contentments, new love. But this is not all. It pours itself mightily into the womb of the Eternal One. The divine will bilocated in the creature kisses, loves, adores the will reigning in God himself. It brings everyone and everything to him, and as they dive into each other, it rises again to follow its course. In fact, since the fullness of the sun of the eternal will is in the soul, this sun is at her disposal, and as she emits her acts, loving, praying, repairing, and so forth, this sun continues its course to give to all the surprise of its light, of its love, of its life. So while this sun of the eternal will rises and follows its course to perform its setting in the womb of the divinity, another one rises to follow its way, enveloping everything, even the celestial fatherland, to then have its golden sunset in the womb of the Supreme Majesty. So the bilocations of my will are innumerable. The sun rises at each act of the creature done within the sun of the Supreme Volition, which does not happen with the sun present in the atmosphere, which is always one and does not multiply. Oh, if the sun had the virtue of making as many suns rise for as many times as it does its course over the earth, how many suns could one not see up there? What enchantment! How many more goods would the earth not receive? Therefore, how many goods does the soul who lives completely in my will not do by giving her God the occasion to bilocate his will, to let him repeat the prodigies which only a God can do? Having said this, he disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. May 10th, 1928, Volume 24. One who does the divine will enters the divine order. How pains cannot enter the divinity. Example of the sun. I felt I was under the nightmare of an infinite weight. My poor mind moaned with suffocated moans, without the vent of being able to let them out because of the privation of my sweet Jesus. And while I felt consumed by the harrowing pain of being without my life and my all, that very pain, making me intrepid, destroyed in me the life of the pain. And while I felt immersed in pain, incapable of expressing myself, it was yet pain without pain, sorrow without sorrow, and in my bitterness I thought to myself, and why am I not able to grieve? I feel an infinite pain in me, as infinite as he who left me. Yet as I try to penetrate into a pain so just and holy, which is that of being without my Jesus, so as to water my poor soul, the pain escapes me, and I remain without the life of the pain. My Jesus, have pity on me. Do not leave me in a state so unhappy. But while I was thinking of this, my lovable Jesus moving in my interior told me, "My daughter, one who lives in my will enters the divine order. And since our divinity is incapable of pain, nothing, even the slightest thing, can in the least shade our perennial and infinite happiness. And as much as creatures offend us, the pain, the offenses remain outside of us, never inside. And if pain could enter into us, it would immediately lose the nature of pain and would convert into happiness. In the same way, for one who lives in my will, pain cannot enter her soul. More so since, in feeling the light, the strength, the happiness of the nature of my divine will within herself, she already feels in possession of that Jesus of whom she seems to be deprived. How can she grieve if she already possesses him? Therefore pain remains outside of the soul, that is, in the human nature. And while the soul feels all the spasm of my privation, and the weight of an infinite pain, which is the privation of me, because she is invested by the divine Fiat, she seems incapable of grieving. And so she feels pain without pain, sorrow without sorrow, because pain and sorrows cannot enter the sacrarium of my will. They are forced to remain outside. The soul feels them, sees them, touches them, but they do not enter into her center. And if they did, my will would lose its happy nature in you, which cannot be. It happens as to the sun, which is incapable of darkness. All human strengths cannot make one atom of darkness enter into its light. However, darkness can extend outside of the light. But the sun loses nothing, neither its heat nor its admirable effects. It is always triumphant in its state of light. Darkness can neither make it go down, nor does it take anything away from its light. However, if the sun could grieve, it would feel ill in being surrounded by darkness, even though it can cause no harm to its center, or to its happy state. However, this is a pain that surpasses all other pains, because it is pain of divine order. How many times my humanity felt it! It felt itself being crushed. All pains weighed upon me, but inside of me the divine will was untouchable by all my pains, and possessed immense happinesses, beatitudes without end. It can be said that there were two natures in me, one opposed to the other, one of happiness, the other of pains. Oh, how my human nature felt the pains more vividly before the immense joys of my divine nature. This is why you are incapable of expressing yourself, because these are pains of divine order. And if before, when I would hide from you, you felt that everything would turn into pain within you, it was because the life of my will in its wholeness was missing in you. Therefore those voids were filled with pain, and you would feel sensitivity to the pain that rendered you not imperturbable and peaceful as today, but agitated, without that firmness that gives of the divine. And I would immediately run to sustain you, because I did not see all the indelible characters of my will. In fact, what my will places is never erased, and I, feeling assured, leave the task to my divine Fiat. May 10th, 1930, Volume 28, How All Created Things Are Happy, because they were created by a divine will. How God loved man with perfect love, and gave him complete love, sanctity, and beauty. My little soul continues its course in the works that the divine will created. And while I was looking at the creation in order to unite myself to the homages that they give to my Creator, I could see how everything was happiness in them. The heavens, happy in their extension, extendable to all points. It seems that their extension says fullness of happiness, and all their stars are degrees of happiness that the heavens possess, such that rising toward their Creator, the heavens glorify him with the happiness of their extension and with many degrees of stars that they possess. The sun is happy in its light, in the fecundity of its heat, in the beauty of its varied colors, in the sweetness and distinct flavors it possesses. Oh, how happy it is! How it rises to He who created it, to bring him the glory, the homages of so much happiness it possesses. But while my mind was wandering within the many happinesses that the creation possesses, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, all created things are happy, happy because they were created by a divine will that is in itself eternally happy, happy because of the office they occupy, happy in the space in which they find themselves, happy because they glorify their Creator. Not one thing created by us was created unhappy. Therefore all possess the fullness of happiness. Now, if we poured so much happiness into all creation, in creating man, not only did we create him twice as happy, giving him the vein of happiness in the mind, in the gaze, in the word, in the heartbeat, in the motion, in the step, but we gave him in his power happiness itself, multiplying it in each good act, word, step, and everything else that he would do. There were no limits of happiness for him as in created things. To man was given the virtue of growing ever more in happiness. But this, if he would let himself be dominated by my divine will. Without it, happiness cannot reign. Oh, if created things could go out of our fiat, they would instantly lose the happiness and would change into the most unhappy works. Therefore, if you want to be happy, let yourself be dominated by my divine will, because it alone has the virtue of giving happiness to the creature, and of changing the most bitter things into the sweetest nectar. My daughter, you must know that we loved the creature with perfect love, and therefore in creating her, we placed in her complete happiness, complete love, sanctity, and beauty, so that the creature might place herself in a contest with us and requite us with complete happiness, love, and sanctity, in a way that we might delight so much in her as to be able to say, "How beautiful is the work created by us!" And in order to be sure that our gifts would not suffer any detriment in the creature, we entrusted her to our divine will, that it might serve her as life, to keep in her our happiness, our love, our sanctity, and beauty, making them always grow. Therefore all the good of man was bound to our divine will. Once our will is rejected, all goods end, nor is there greater misfortune than that of not letting oneself be dominated by my divine will, because it alone is the preserver and the call of our goods in the creature. May 10th, 1931, Volume 29. One who wants to receive must give. Ways that Jesus has. The divine gifts, bearers of peace. How the divine will has the fermenting virtue. What good a fulfilled act of divine will encloses. I am always in the dear inheritance of the divine will. Wherever I turn my mind, my step, I find it as ruling queen who, with her sweet empire, wants to reign over my poor soul, and with the most eloquent, gentle, and powerful voice, says to me, swooning with love, such as to be able to convert the whole entire world into fire, "As queen, I await you in each of my works, that you may come to form and extend your little divine kingdom in my own works. Look at me. I am queen, and one who is queen has the power to give to her children whatever she wants. More so, since my kingdom is universal, my power is without limits, and as queen, I love to not be alone in my kingdom, but I want the cortege, the company of my children, and to share with them my universal empire. Therefore let your way be my works that, like many signs, will direct you to making many encounters with your celestial queen, who awaits you to give you her gifts as the sure pledge of her kingdom." Then, while my mind was wandering in the immense light of the divine will, my always lovable Jesus told me, "My daughter, one who wants to receive must give. Giving disposes the creature to receive, and God to give. Many times also your Jesus has this way. When I want something from the creature, I give, and if I want great sacrifices, I give much. so that in looking at the much I have given, she will feel ashamed and will not have the courage to deny me the sacrifice I ask of her. To give is to almost bind the person who receives. It is to draw his attention, his love. To give is to appreciate. To give is hope. To give is to make the memory of the giver arise in the heart. And how many times people who did not know each other become friends by means of a gift. Now, in the divine order, the giver is always God, who acts as first in sending his gifts to the creature. But if she does not move to give something to her Creator, be it even her little love, her gratitude, a little sacrifice, because if we gave, it was because we wanted, no more gifts are sent by us, because by not giving us anything, she has closed the correspondence and has broken the beautiful friendship that our gift was to make arise. Now, my daughter, to give and to receive are first and indispensable acts that, in clear notes, indicate that we love the creature and that she loves us. But this is not enough. One must know how to receive by converting the good received into one's nature, by eating it and masticating it thoroughly, in such a way as to convert the gift into the soul's blood. This is our purpose in giving our gifts, wanting to see the gift we gave converted into her nature, because then our gifts are not in danger, and we dispose ourselves to give greater gifts, and the creature, having converted it into her nature, places our gift in safety, becomes the possessor of it, and will feel within herself the good, the font, and the good received converted into her nature. And since our gifts are bearers of peace, of happiness, of invincible strength, of celestial air, she will feel within herself the nature of peace, of happiness, of divine strength, that will form in her the air of heaven. This is the reason why, when I give you the great gift of my word, then I remain silent. It is because I am waiting for you to nourish yourself and masticate my word well, in such a way as to see in you, changed into your nature, what I have told you. And when I see this, then I feel the irresistible need of love to speak to you again, because one gift of mine calls for another, nor can they remain alone, and I have always something to give, always something to say and to do with one who converts my gifts into her nature. After this, I was thinking about the divine will, how it seemed difficult to me that its kingdom might come. And my beloved Jesus added, "My daughter, just as the yeast has the virtue of fermenting the bread, so is my will the fermentator of the acts of the creature. As she calls my divine will into her acts, they remain fermented by it, and form the bread of the kingdom of my will. Now, in order to make much bread, the yeast is not enough, but it takes much flour. It takes someone who must do these acts of uniting flour and yeast. It takes water, bond of union, to be able to knead flour and yeast, so that the yeast may communicate the fermenting virtue, and the flour may receive it. Then it takes the fire to cook this bread, to form it as nourishing and digestible bread. Now, does it not take more time, more acts, to form it rather than to eat it? The sacrifice is in forming it. As for eating it, it is done quickly, and one feels the taste of the sacrifice. So, my daughter, the yeast of my divine fiat, that has only the virtue of fermenting your acts, emptying them of the human will in order to convert them into bread of divine will, is not enough, but it takes a continuation of acts, of sacrifices, and for a long time, in such a way that my will, with its fermenting virtue, will ferment all these acts so as to form much bread and keep it prepared and in store for the children of its kingdom. When everything will be formed, what is left is to dispose the events. And this is easier, and is done quickly, because it is in our power to move the secondary causes in order to do what we want. Did I not do likewise for redemption? My long 30 years of my hidden life were like the yeast in which all my acts were fermented, to form and ferment the great good of redemption. The short life of my public life and my passion was my fermented bread that my divine will formed and fermented in my acts, that like bread I broke for all and gave to eat, so that all might receive the bread of the redeemed ones, to acquire the necessary strengths to put themselves in safety. Therefore give yourself no concern. Think of doing your duty and letting not one of your acts escape in which you do not put the yeast of my divine will, so that your being may remain fermented by it, and I will think of all the rest. Then I continued thinking, but what does Jesus get from this poor state of mine? And why does he have so much interest that I fall into my usual sufferings, with so much trouble and bother that he causes me to give to others, such that I could call this my martyrdom? Oh, how hard it is having to deal with creatures, feeling the need of them out of pure necessity. This humiliates me so much that I remain as though annihilated in my own nothingness. But while I was thinking of this and other things, my sweet Jesus told me, "My daughter, do you want to know what I get? My divine will fulfilled, and this is everything for me. One fulfilled act of mine, of my will, encloses all the heavens, the sun, the earth, and even myself. There is no love that I do not find, goods that it does not possess, glory that it does not give me. Everything remains centralized in one fulfilled act of my will. And the happy creature that fulfills it can say to me, 'I have given you everything, even yourself. I have nothing more to give you.' In fact, my divine will encloses everything. There is not one thing or good that might escape it. Therefore, by fulfilling it in what I want, the creature finds what my will is in itself. And I can say, 'By giving you the grace of letting you do a fulfilled act of it, I gave you everything.' Even more by fulfilling it, my pains rise. My steps, my words, my works are doubled and put themselves in motion to give themselves to creatures, because my divine will, operating also in the creature, puts all our works in motion to make them rise to new life. And you tell me, what do I get? My daughter, think of doing it, and make it so that your life may be a continuous act of my will." May 10th, 1937, Volume 34, How God Makes Himself Food of the Creature. The reciprocation, the harmonization, the speaking to each other of both parties forms the most beautiful works. How the Queen of Heaven continues the office of mother and raises her son in creatures. The sea of the divine volition continues to inundate me, and I being incapable and unable at everything, it seems that it delights itself, as to a little tiny one, to feed me with its hands, more than maternal, the food of its fiat. And it teaches me word by word, syllable by syllable, the first vowels about the science of the divine will. And when it seems that I have understood it in some way, oh, how it makes feast, because it feels all the certainty of forming a soul completely of divine will. And I, in seeing its maternal cares, How content I am by it, and I thank it from the heart. And my beloved Jesus, as spokesman of his volition, all goodness told me, my little daughter of my volition, every truth that I manifest to you about my fiat is a growth that you make of it. It is one more mouthful that serves in order to strengthen you, warm you, and conform you all the more in it. It is one more sip that you drink of the immense sea of my will. It is one more divine property that you acquire. Now you must know that every additional act that you do in it, we prepare before you our celestial table. And if you love, it feeds you with our love. If you pass to understanding us, it feeds you with our wisdom. And oh, how much beautiful news and how many knowledges it gives of your Creator. In fact, your God becomes your predilect food. Therefore, in everything that you do, now it feeds you with our power, now with our goodness, now with our sweetness, with our strength, light, and our mercy. Therefore, the human littleness, by living in our eternal volition, absorbs us sip by sip, mouthful by mouthful, because being little, as well as because of how much is possible for a creature, it is not given to her to take altogether what she must take of our divine being. More so because this serves to mutually delight each other, we to give and she to receive. We to give of ours, and she to give to us her littleness. We to work her as we want, and she lends herself to letting us work. It is the exchange on both parts, the mutual harmonizing with each other, the speaking to each other, that forms our most beautiful works, and we develop the life of our will in the creature. Without doing anything, one does nothing. Therefore, it is necessary to operate, to speak, to make ourselves understood, to labor in order to make the beautiful statues the repeaters of our life. So when we find one who wants to listen to us, gives herself to us in order to receive, we do not spare anything of what we can do and know how to do for the creature. Now, my daughter, when the creature is fed by our fiat, even to not knowing any other food, and has formed the chain of our acts, all sealed by the characteristics of the divine virtues, God remains imprisoned in his divine virtues in the creature. And then if she loves, it is God who makes a display of the power of his love, of his goodness, sanctity, and so forth in the acts of the creature. In fact, such is the power that goes forth by means of these acts that God does in his creature, that it invests heaven and earth. It flutters over all souls, and with its powerful love, it invests them, it envelops them, and lets her give the kiss of the divine volition in a way that the human family will feel its power, its love, that wants to reign. More so because this hidden God gives them this right by means of a creature who belongs to their human race, rights that they will not be able to disown, except some perfidious one. But my power will know how to knock down and conquer. So let me complete the labor of my will in you. Do not oppose anything, and you and I will be content to see it reign in the other creatures. After this I received Holy Communion, and in my interior my dear Jesus made himself seen, tiny, tiny, as well as the Celestial Mother, who extended her azure mantle over me and the divine baby. Then I do not know how, I felt her within me, and she kissed and caressed and took in her arms her dear son. She clasped him to her heart. She raised him. She nourished him. She made him 1,000 stratagems of love. I was a spectator, and I marveled. And the sovereign celestial Mamma told me, but with a love that was amazing, "My daughter, there is nothing to marvel about. I am inseparable from my dear Jesus. Where there is the Son, the Mother must be. This is my task, to raise him in souls. He is tiny. Souls do not understand how they must raise him, nor do they have the milk of love in order to nourish him, so as to quiet his crying, to warm him when they make him numb from the cold. I, who am the Mamma, know the little needs of my divine baby, nor would he know how to be without his Mamma. We are inseparable from each other. I repeat in souls what I did in his infancy, and while I raise my son, lending her all the care in order to render him happy, at the same time I take care of the daughter, in order to raise her according to how my son wants her. This is my more than celestial mission. As I see my son in souls, I run, I descend into them, and I occupy myself with his growth. More so, that one being the will of my son, with mine, as come natural where she finds him, there also am I. And as a result, my love imposes itself to develop the office of mother for he who so much loves me, and for those who we so much love, because I feel them as twins born at one birth, my son God and the creature. How not to love them? Then, with a more tender and moving accent, she added, "My daughter, how beautiful, great, prodigious is the virtue of the divine will. It empties everything that is neither light nor divine. It unites the farthest distances. It repeats in act what it has done for centuries and centuries, and it renders as connatural the human act in the divine. It is its creative strength that arrives at bilocating, at multiplying, at transforming its own life in the creature. Therefore love it a great deal, and do not deny it anything." May 10th, 1938, Volume 36. How God, to be loved by creatures, puts in their hearts his love and turns it into coins. The Vigils of Jesus. Divine paternity and the sonship of one who lives in the divine will. How God writes the name of his daughter with indelible characters. I feel the divine will calling me every instant, wanting to be loved. And since my love is just little drops, it wants to give me its own love, so that I may have seas, not just drops to tell God that I love him very much. The divine volition is so good that it wants to give itself in order to rejoice, saying, "The creature loves me." So my always adorable Jesus, coming back to visit my poor soul with his heart beating very fast, squeezing me to himself in his arms, told me, "My blessed daughter, I burn of love. I feel like fainting. I am delirious for desire of love. And to reach this end, do you know what I do? I put my love in the heart of the creature. I let it flow in her mind, words, works, and steps. I turn all this love that flows everywhere into coins of divine love, and to let it circulate as our currency, we impress on them my image and the writing, Jesus, King of the Kingdom of the Divine Will. Now we give this coin of love to the creature to say, I loved you by right. With this love, turned into money by our goodness, she can buy anything she wants and loves, such as our sanctity, our very will, and our virtues. If she wants more love, she has enough coins to buy it. Oh, how we delight in seeing that the creature, no longer poor but rich, has so much that she can even buy our virtues, our very sanctity. How beautiful it is to see her holding our love coins that make her owner of all our goods. But we give this money only to the soul who lives in our will, since she won't waste it. She'll keep it and multiply it to be able to love us more and refresh us from our devouring flames. Then I started my round in the acts of the divine will, and I felt such suffering and fidgeting that I couldn't calm down. Minutes were like centuries. What an endless night! And I was waiting for my sweet Jesus to come and calm me down, when finally, after long waiting, my dear Jesus made himself seen, breathless and all goodness. He said, "Poor daughter, how hard the vigil is it not? How many times your Jesus finds himself with these pains, so cruel and torturing. How many vigils creatures make me do. I can say I'm always watching, suffering, restless for my love. If the creature sins, I feel her running away from my arms, and I watch over her. I look at her. I see her surrounded by demons that make a feast, and even make fun of the good she's done. Poor good, how much it becomes covered by the mud of guilt. But since I still love her, I send her some sparkles of light, and I watch. I send her remorse to make her stand up again, and I watch. Minutes seem centuries. I cannot calm down if I do not see her coming back into my arms, and I watch, always watch. I spy on her beating heart, the thoughts of her mind, to provoke in her the memory of how much I love her. Nothing. I am just forced to wait in vain. How hard the vigil is. Only if she comes back to me can I rest a little. Otherwise my vigil continues. If another wants to do good but takes time, never making up her mind, I still watch over her. I try to attract her with my love, with inspirations, even with promises. But she does not make up her mind, finding many excuses and difficulties. She keeps me in vigil. How many vigils! So many vigils these creatures make me do, and in so many different ways. Here is the reason for your vigil, to keep me a little company in my continuous vigil. Therefore let us suffer together. Love me, and I will find a little rest from so many vigils." Then he added with a more tender tone, "Daughter of my pains, would you like to know who does not give me such hard suffering? The soul who lives in my will. Further, as she decides to live in it, I name her my daughter. I call the whole of heaven and the most holy Trinity to celebrate my new daughter. Everybody knows her because I write her name with indelible characters inside my heart, in my ever-burning love, my daughter. She remains always with me in my will, and anything I do, she does. She rises again with me in my continuous resurrections, and if human ingratitude makes me cry, I write her, daughter of my birth. She cries with me, so I write even in my tears, daughter of my tears. In sum, if I suffer, work, or walk, I write her daughter of my pains, works, or steps. I keep her impressed in me everywhere. Now you must know that between father and child there are permanent bonds. Nobody can deny the rights of the father and the rights of the child. either in the supernatural or in the natural order. Therefore, as a father, I feel the obligation to make heir of my goods, love, and sanctity, the one who so solemnly declared herself to be my daughter, to the extent that I keep her written in my heart. Not loving her would be like defrauding my paternal love. I just cannot. She then has the duty to love me and possess my goods, to defend her father, to make him known, even to give her life so that nobody may offend him. Oh, how beautiful it is to see these children of mine living in my will, telling me, "My father, you've been waiting and watching for too long. You are tired. Please rest." To let your rest be sweet and smooth, I'd like you to rest in my love, and I will start watching over souls, taking your place. Who knows, maybe I'll manage to bring someone back by the time you wake up. So I trust these children and take a rest. Oh, what can't a soul living in my will do? She can do everything, since her light makes her aware of all my pains, and I do everything for her. We alternate in vigil and rest. How beautiful it is to live in my will. The creature places herself in our own conditions, and what we want, she wants. This is the most holy thing, the greatest and the noblest, so full of majesty and purity, wanting what God wants. Nobody else can reach such a sublime height, such an infinite value, wanting what God wants. God is holy. God is pure. God is order and goodness. By wanting what God wants, the creature wants what is holy, pure, and good. In the fullness of his order, she feels reborn in God and does what he does. God does everything, embraces all, moves in everybody, and she concurs in all God does. There is no higher good she could do. There is nothing superior or even equal to living in my will. Therefore, live always in my fiat, and we will be happy, you and I. End of May 10th. Fiat.